Today marks 10 years on from the BBC Panorama show, revealing serious abuse happening at the Winterbourne View private hospital in Bristol. A care quality commission report found there was a systematic failure to protect people at Winterbourne View. Many people would argue that although there has been many reports since then, there has been no real change in the last decade. The Right to Homes campaign has been leading a week of action leading up to the anniversary. I spoke to some people to see what they remember about Winterbourne View and asked them what them or their organisation has done because of what has happened.
What I remember about Winterbourne View is that I was very upset at what I saw on the documentary on BBC Panorama, and I was very angry that people with learning disabilities were being treated like this.
I remember, Gary, sitting actually in the room that I'm in now. There's a chair that you can't see over there, and I knew the Panorama programme was coming, and I remember thinking, you know, this is going to be awful. But I also thought, you know, I'm sure there's stuff that I will have seen before, and that isn't actually how I felt when I watched it. It just left me cold. It left me feeling really shocked. It was so cruel, and it was so intentional, the acts of abuse that I saw. Inhumane, but what was awful, it was very sort of constant and consistent. There were horrific scenes where you saw people sitting outside shivering with cold. I think what disturbed me the most was that it wasn't hidden. It was the behavior was really open, and so there was a culture going on there where, you know, this activity was okay. It was normal. It was everyday type stuff, and in some parts you kind of thought, actually, this was behaviour that people seem to be aspiring to, and I'd never seen something like that before.
When I saw that programme on the television, it left me feeling really angry and really upset, and with lots and lots of questions. I think my first thought was for the people who had suffered at the hands of the staff there, how traumatized they must be, but also for their family, how their families must have been traumatized. I can't imagine myself as a parent carer finding out that one of my sons had been treated so badly and abused in the way they had been. And I'm sure that trauma must still be living with those families and those people. That, you know, it's something that's with them for the rest of their lives.
I remember it being really shocking. And I think you kind of worry that that stuff's going on, and then to have it right in front of your face that it definitely is going on, it was just awful, really. I remember it being a really difficult time. Yeah, appalling, really. Yeah.
I remember the programme, Gary, back in 2011. Vividly remember it, and I watched it because there was a lot of publicity beforehand. And after I'd watched it, I was just horrified. You know, I've got a brother with learning disabilities who lives in supported living. So he was just about 10 years then into where he was living. He was sharing a house. And you kind of think to yourself, when you're not there, what's happening? So I was extremely shocked and concerned about that. And, you know, I made phone calls to Tony, even though I knew he'd be fine. But it also brought back memories of when I was a teenager. So when I did work experience, I worked in a local hospital for people with learning disabilities, and I witnessed abuse there. And when I was a social worker later on in my career, I witnessed it again, and I reported that abuse and then had to be a witness in various proceedings. So it was a very poignant reminder that we need to keep a very close eye on all people who live in such places.
Well, after Winterbourne View, My Life, My Choice decided that we would start doing care treatment reviews, so that we decided we would start doing them, and where we'd actually go into the care treatment hospitals and do the assessments and check to make sure that people with learning disabilities are being looked after properly and not being abused. And also we've been attending meetings with the Care Quality Commission with pet carers, and to have meetings about trying to close the treatment and assessment units.
So I think, within choice support, one of the things that I think, that I've always tried to do in the roles that I've been in is that we have been very clear that what we saw at Winterbourne View and behaviours and attitudes, like that, it's not okay. There are no excuses and it will not be tolerated, and we have to take action whenever we know. I think I'm also I'm also understand that people need to feel they're going to be listened to and feel safe to raise their concerns, raise their voices. So one of the things we started doing was to support people to have their voice heard, so that they could tell us what was going on. And to do that, we had to do a big focus around rights, human rights, that people mustn't suffer in silence, and find ways that people who don't use words can come to us, tell us, or that we can pick up on stuff. We do a lot of work with families. I think it's really important that there is an open culture where families are not afraid to tell us when things are not going right and not going well, and that we foster those really good relationships, not just in the good times, in the bad, all of the time. And so we need to make sure we listen to people. So we did things like, we had family forums, but we have now what we call family ambassadors, who are people who have children with learning disabilities that other families can always go to in the first instance, and that works really well.
I live in Essex and I coordinate a carers network in Essex. So the very next day we wrote to our Learning Disability Partnership Board to ask them if there were any Essex families that had been living in Winterbourne, but also ask them to reassure us that this kind of thing wasn't happening on our doorstep. One of the things that we're involved with now is we're doing welfare visits, family carers alongside advocates, to all the people who who'd been staying in that hospital over the past 4 years, to see where they're living now. Are they happy? Are they safe? And are they able to have their say about the care they're getting? Which is really, really important, because when hospitals are closed down, we need to know that wherever people are moved to, that they're safe and they're settled and they're not just having just as bad an experience again. So that's something that we're doing in Essex at the moment because of having those 2 hospitals closed down.
Well, when it happened, the Driving Up Quality Code came out, didn't it? And we took that really seriously. So New Prospect spent loads of time working on that Driving Up Quality Code. And then I think what we did was, so loads of the stuff that happens in places like Winterbourne View, I reckon, is because we forget people's rights, or we're kind of, even with bad things as bad as that aren't happening, you can kind of see people's rights being taken away or ignored a bit. So we spent a bit of time thinking about how can we make sure that people's rights are really strong in the organisation. We've got something called the ambassadors. So we've got a lush bloke, John, who we support, and a fantastic member of staff, Ali. I nearly forgot her name. That's shocking. Ali. So John and Ali are our ambassadors for culture. So their job is to make sure that people are aware of their rights, and also make sure that we find good examples of good support and celebrate good support.
Right. Well, my organisation is Learning Disability England, and we're doing this. We're supporting the likes of Rightful Lives and all the other campaigning groups who want to ensure that this is never forgotten. That not only was there Winterbourne View, but we also had Wharton Hall recently. So that's what I'm doing from an organisational point of view. On a personal level, I review. I'm an independent reviewer of care and treatment reviews, and so I see my role as that independent reviewer as vital to ensure that people are safe when they unfortunately have to go into hospitals that or establishments similar to Winterbourne View.